Online and HyFlex Teaching Support, which is the first webinar in a series of two. So thanks for joining us today. So we have a really great team of people who are here to help you. We are all on the Minnesota statewide digital learning team. So like I said, I'm Katie Miller and Nicholas Holson is here, Elizabeth Bennett, Jason Brazier, Rebecca Jarvis, and Susan Wettenkamp Brandt are also on the team, and hopefully we'll be able to help you all out today. Okay, just a couple of housekeeping items. Like I mentioned before, yes, this main session will be recorded and uploaded to the Minnesota ABE PD YouTube channel, but your time in breakout rooms will not be recorded. There is a handout that will include all of the slides from today and all of the resources that we'll cover later. And this will be shared with you afterwards via email. And then in that same email, you will also see an evaluation link. And then when you complete that evaluation, you'll be able to download your CEU certificates. So just a little aside, a little caveat, this isn't the exact webinar that we had planned originally. But hopefully across our team, we're able to meet everyone where they're at. And I think we'll be able to get everyone the help they need today. Okay, so by the end of this webinar, hopefully you will all be able to define what HyFlex in online and HyFlex classes are, and also be able to talk about what distance learning is, at least in the context of Minnesota, because it's a little bit different. Hopefully, you will also be able to identify resources to address some of the common issues associated with online and HyFlex classes and begin to plan how you're going to roll this out in your context. And then we'll have a little bit of time to experience and reflect on an interactive online lesson with different ed tech tools. So you'll be able to play around with a site of your choosing. And then hopefully you will leave here with some new technical knowledge and skills for teaching online. Okay, so there's a lot that we're going to cover. This is how we're going to do it. We've got some mini lessons with me and Elizabeth talking about different ed tech tools. Then we'll have a little debrief. We'll take a quick stretch break, and then we will end in breakout rooms by topic. Okay, so we know that online teaching, HyFlex teaching is kind of a big adjustment. So in the chat, it would be really awesome if you could let us know which Elmo you think kind of represents how you're feeling about um, teaching online, moving online, anything like that. It seems like people aren't super excited to be moving online, but hopefully we'll get you all prepared to be a little bit closer to number three. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, everyone. So, some themes from the registration questions that you filled out when you registered for this webinar came up, and they are people are looking for basic online tech tools. They're also looking for tips on how to plan lessons and adapt materials from in-person to online or HyFlex. And then engagement and interaction, especially for beginning learners online, can be difficult, so people had concerns about that. And then managing HyFlex or hybrid classes. And then I think Elizabeth might be taking over.
Sure. I had a little too much fun in Canva making this infographic, so I will talk about it. I know many of you are from Minnesota and you may know this already, but just for those of you who are attending from other places, we're a little special. Um, we talk about distance education as kind of an umbrella term. And distance learning for us has a very specific definition, and it's actually not really related to physical distance between learners or between the learners and the teacher. Distance learning for us is always asynchronous learning. We have a lot of approved distance learning platforms. Some of the more popular ones are listed here. And some teachers also use the teacher verified model where they create their own asynchronous lessons for learners to complete. And some teachers even create full asynchronous courses. But that's not really what we're going to focus on today. Today, we are focused on remote synchronous learning. So this would be where some or all learners are joining online via Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams or another platform like that. Um, Katie, did you want to take this or should I continue?
Um, I can take this one because I
Okay.
know you'll be sharing some really great resources with us in a couple minutes. Um, so there's a couple models that we'll be talking about today. So fully online classes are ones where learners usually aren't coming to your school building. They're usually doing it from usually like their house, or sometimes people will take classes from libraries, anywhere they have access um, to technology and internet. And the teachers and volunteers could be at the school or they could be at their own homes. HyFlex or hybrid flexible is a little bit different. So teachers are at the school and both learners and volunteers have the choice to be online or in person. And that's where the flexible comes in because learners are able to choose how they participate, whether it's in person or via online.
And I'll just add, if we are going to be doing a HyFlex teaching study circle for Minnesota educators starting next week. And if you want to dive in a little bit deeper into the literature, you'll learn in HyFlex a really important principle is equivalency. So regardless of their physical location, regardless if they're joining you in person or if they're joining online, learners need to have an equivalent, equitable experience. Everybody is working towards the same learning goals, and um, teachers have to adapt so that everybody can have an equitable experience. And both modes of participation are equally valid and supported, which is difficult. I'm not going to tell you it's easy, but it is possible, and we will share a lot of resources and ideas today. Um, so let's just dive into some of those resources. Most of them are, actually all of them are linked somewhere in this one document that I've pulled together. So you can see if you're watching the recording, it's tinyurl.com/one-stop-2026. And I'll just drop this in the chat for those of you who are attending synchronously. Um, so if you remember nothing else from this webinar, pretty much everything is linked there. So just if you can just keep track of that one document, you'll be okay. I want to though highlight some of the resources that are available because there's a lot of stuff there. Um, as Katie presented, a lot of you I know are concerned about just really basic tech skills. How on earth do I run a class in Google Meet or Zoom? Um, so something that I think is really helpful is this choice board. So I will, it is linked in the one-stop doc under Online and HyFlex Teaching Foundations. And it's this handout here. Um, this is reused from Summer Institute, but I was checking the registration and I don't think anyone who registered for today is actually attended this session at Summer Institute. So the resources are still good. Um, so if you scroll down to the second page, we've kind of leveled them out for you. So if you are totally new to teaching online, you probably want to start with those level one skills, just the really basic logistics. Can I set up a class link? How am I going to share that link with learners so that they can successfully join the meeting? Um, Once I'm in the meeting, I want to be able to share my screen so that I can share content with learners. And I want to be sure that I have at least a few ways that learners can participate and be engaged in my class. Um, it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be as simple as turn on your camera, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Um, Use the fun reactions in Google Meet or Zoom. Use the chat. Simple, relatively simple things like that. Chat can be a little more complicated for learners using mobile devices, but again, this is why you want to find some time to practice with your colleagues and practice on a mobile device. Practice joining a meeting on your phone so that you get that experience because the majority of learners are probably joining your class that way. Um, we also have to talk about the learner side of tech skills. Um, Really, the big things that help with this are orientation, ideally in person. But of course, that's not always possible under all circumstances. Um, it is possible to do orientation remotely, and there are some resources that I will show you in a second that you can copy and adapt as needed for your context. Also, really helpful to have multilingual support for English learners. If you are fortunate enough to have multilingual staff or multilingual volunteers, really lean on them. Also consider other learners. Can more experienced or more advanced learners step in and provide support in other languages? You want to have really clear class expectations and be sure that you're explicitly sharing those expectations with learners when they join your class. Um, it's not an in-person class anymore. It's either fully online or it's HyFlex, and things are going to feel different. Um, and that's okay, right? It is different. We have some good reasons for needing to offer online and flexible options to adult learners. And speaking from my own experience teaching a HyFlex class, it definitely was an adjustment for everybody. Um, But learners really quickly seemed to recognize the benefit of it. I mean, it's not just in emergency situations, but everybody has those times where their car is broken, or their child is sick, or they are sick, or their work schedule changed at the last minute. And having an online option allows them to still have access to education despite all those other barriers. So I'll show you this. We have a wonderful Padlet with tons of examples and templates from Minnesota teachers and Minnesota programs. So this first column, we have a bunch of things about orientation and intake, some nice slides for teaching learners about Google Meet, about email accounts, some checklists that are pretty user-friendly and you can just adapt for your context. If you're doing remote orientation, not ideal, but I did this sometimes, and I just had a bunch of these documents. I had written it out in English, and then I just used Google Translate or ChatGPT to translate it into whatever language I needed. And I would always tell my learners, like, I'm sorry, I don't know Ukrainian. I have no idea if this is a good translation or not, but I hope that it is helpful and you can understand. Um, but just, explaining these are the basic things that you have to participate in our class. Here's your login information. Here's how you're going to find your assignments, and find your homework and participate in class. I even had some videos about basic tech skills, especially on the phone, because it's not always obvious. When teachers are generally presenting their computer screen and things are in different places when learners are on a mobile device. So there's that for you. Um, and then this next column, we have a lot of examples of class activities and routines, just helping people get acclimated to Zoom, um, some sample class expectations. Um, this engaging online instruction for literacy level ESOL, I highly recommend. It's just a 25-minute recording with tons of great, simple, really easy to implement ideas to make your classes engaging, even for beginning level learners. And then we have some ideas for transferring. You have your instructional strategies that you love to use in person, jigsaw readings, paired activities, all these sorts of instructional strategies that we use. And this has a lot of ideas for how to transfer that to an online context. We've also got some really great HyFlex practitioners here in Minnesota, and they have been really generous and shared a lot of resources. We've got some digital graphic organizers, um, just a lot of ideas for fun stuff. We've got a whole section related to Google Meet specifically, including Google Meet on a phone, um, using the chat, other things you can do in Google Meet, joining breakouts. We've got a HyFlex section, and if you keep scrolling, that's the hard thing about Padlets. You have to scroll not only up and down within each column, but also side to side to see all the columns. Just some general resources, how to be an online learner, general EdTech tools and tips, and resources that you can use with staff and volunteers. So tons of things there to help you out. Um, yes, as Nick says in the chat, it's never too late. A lot of us are, we've been scrambling. It definitely is feeling a lot like 2020, in some ways. And we're not able to do everything the ideal, perfect way that we would like to had we had more time to prepare and really thoughtfully plan something out. So it's never too late. You can always just make small changes and improve from wherever you are. Another really common challenge is access, right? Learners, they generally have a smartphone. It's possible to join class on a smartphone, but not ideal, especially if you're trying to read or write longer texts. It just gets really difficult. Um, Internet connections can also be an issue if learners are just relying on their cellular data connection. I had a lot of learners who their connection was not strong enough. They would try to join the meeting and get kicked out, and then have to rejoin and get kicked out again. And it was a frustrating experience. So just being aware of those issues, and um, we like to promote this service model called digital navigation, which I think the easiest way to explain it is you're like a social worker, but you're just dealing with issues that help people access online classes and online resources. So, digital navigators can do things like help someone set up their device, save their passwords, make sure they have all the apps installed, make sure everything is up to date, help with weird things that come up like I can only see my child's account, I can't see my account. Or I have no more memory on my phone. I can't install anything else. What do I do? A digital navigator is someone who's going to sit down with an individual and help them with whatever they need to access online content. And I like to really emphasize that this is not about having advanced IT skills. You don't need to have an advanced degree. You don't need to know how to code. It's nothing like that. It's typically very simple things like, can you go to the App Store and download a new app on your phone? Or can you use email on your phone? Um, it's much more about having a relationship because you want to be, the navigator should be a person that learners can come back to over time. It's having, it's not just a one-off orientation, now you're good. It's whenever something comes up, they can come and ask for help. Um, and we have a bunch of resources on this Padlet for digital inclusion. So a few of these are Minnesota specific, but I think most of them um, will be relevant to people in other places as well. So some ideas for where to get less expensive refurbished devices, some ideas for internet service, a ton of resources about the digital navigation model, and then just some more resources from ABE programs and digital learning and digital inclusion. Another frequently mentioned challenge was materials and activities. So how are you going to adapt what you already have so that you can actually use it online without spending hours and hours and hours of extra time that you do not have? So we have some ideas. And again, I've kind of leveled them into level 1, 2, and 3. So just start wherever you and your learners are and work from there. But even if you're only able to just do very, very basic things, mute and unmute, well, guess what? You can talk to the whole class. If you can turn on your microphone, you can talk and have a conversation. Um, Same thing with the camera. You can do nonverbal things. You can write on a piece of paper or a small whiteboard, hold it up to the camera so the teacher can see what you're writing. You can do TPR activities, raising your hand, using reactions. And then these level 2 and 3 activities probably require some more teaching, but still quite doable. And then for HyFlex, as I mentioned, we have a lot of really fantastic HyFlex teachers in Minnesota. And we have some resources, a newsletter article that just kind of explains more about what HyFlex is and directs you to some resources. We have resources for using volunteers in HyFlex classes, and then those other resources on the Padlet that I showed you before. So that was a lot of me lecturing. This is not ideal, right, for an online lesson. So I'm going to stop talking at you and I'm going to give you an activity. I made this activity with Padlet TA, which uses AI and makes really easy, mobile-friendly, interactive activities for you. And another thing that's nice about it is learners type their names, so you can see results from each learner, but they don't have to sign in. You don't have to deal with usernames and passwords and all of that. Um, this is a great individual activity. You could also have learners do it in breakout groups with someone sharing their screen or each learner on their own individual device, but they're talking to each other as they complete it. Also good for asynchronous work, distance learning, homework. So at this point, I'll put the link in the chat. I would also invite you to pull out a mobile device if you have it, scan the QR code, and get a feel for what this is like on a mobile device. So whichever way is easier for you to access the activity, you can click the link in the chat or scan the QR code. I'll give you a few minutes to do that, but I'll just be hanging out here. So if you're having any challenges, we can pause the recording and let us know. When you're finished with the activity, please return to your Zoom window or tab and then just type OK in the chat so that I know you're ready to continue. So as you're coming back, go ahead and respond in the chat. How was your experience completing this activity? I know some of us had some challenges, so that's very realistic. That happens. Um, but thinking about also how might you be able to use this tool in your context, making an activity that's easier or harder. Yeah, and some of us are changing settings on our phones. Yeah, so I'm getting some comments. Yes, it was frustrating. Okay. Um, a little challenging. The format was a little confusing. Yep. So yeah, it is probably a lot easier on a computer than on a phone. Yeah, not great, not terrible. Always a good idea to try activities first, especially on a phone, to get an idea, is this actually going to be appropriate for my setting? Um, yep. Much easier on a computer. Yeah, and unfortunately, that is kind of a reality of online teaching. It was certainly one of my biggest challenges was that almost none of my learners had computers, and so I really had to think about how am I going to adapt things so that they're actually usable by my learners. All right, we're going to continue because we have a lot more stuff to do. So that was one EdTech tool, Padlet TA. We're going to use another EdTech tool and do another activity in a breakout group this time. Um, so good question about Padlet TA. It is free. With a free account, you can create up to 3 activities. So that would be a total between the traditional Padlet, where like what I used to have the resource collection. There's something called Padlet Sandbox, which is kind of like Jamboard for those of you who may remember teaching with Jamboard, and then this Padlet TA activity. So total of 3. You can kind of get around that by exporting things before you delete them and then delete them and make new things. Um, but yeah, it's not um, no tool is going to be perfect, but I just thought it was something pretty easy because of the AI technology. I just attached a document that I had in my Google Drive, and that activity was created for me in 2 minutes. So definitely something I wish I might have had back in the COVID era. Could have saved me some time. So this next activity, I am going to give you the link to the handout, but before I give you the handout, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. So on the handout, there is, sorry, wrong handout. There is the link to the Padlet activity, so you can access that and then some more information about using it as a teacher. But we're going to work on this one. We're going to be in some breakouts by program or by part of the country, or there's some other options as well. But everyone needs to make your own copy of this worksheet. All right. Um, if you want to, if you're working with people from some of you may be from the same program even, so it would be really beneficial to you probably to work together and share your notes because we're talking about program level strategies, things to support your teachers and your learners as a program. Um, but that's up to you. You can work with people in the same program or not. So I will give you the link now. It's another tiny URL, and I will also put that in the chat. But if you're viewing the recording, you can access this handout from that tiny URL. And then I'll explain the breakouts here. So we have, I hope, a bunch of options, 13 options, and you get to choose the group. Since we have a lot of people from Minnesota, I made some Minnesota specific groups so you can talk with people from the same region where you are. And then I made some groups for people elsewhere in the United States. Um, there is also just group number 12. If you don't feel like talking to people you already know, you want to get to know some new people, that is a choice. You can join group 12. And then group 13 is the introverts group. This would be if there's no one else from your program or state, or you're someone who just prefers to explore and think and reflect on your own, just join group 13, but you can keep your camera and microphone off and just work on your own. Um, have we got the breakouts ready, Jason?
I just opened the room. Oh, let's see. Did that open for people?
Yep, there we go.
All right.
And we will take uh about 15 minutes. We'll do a 15-minute timer. Or I'll just do a 15-minute timer.
Looks like we're still maybe adding some rooms or
Yep.
re
So welcome back, everyone. Um, I realized that was not enough time to probably even answer all your questions in just one of those categories. Um, but I hope you were able to have at least a little bit of useful conversation or spend some time exploring those resources. Um, I also hope you'll share in the chat. We just had a quick little mini lesson with some, basic instruction, individual practice, and group discussion and application. Um, and we used a number of EdTech tools. We've been using Google Slides. We've been using the Zoom chat. Obviously, we used Padlet TA and Google Docs. And so we have some reflection questions for you. And if you would please just share in the chat any reflections or questions you have at this point. Thanks, Julie, for the kind comment. Okay, Michelle is teaching fully online classes. In the summer, may start teaching HyFlex classes. Yeah, so many of us are probably using some of these tools already. Zoom, chat, polls, Google Docs, Canvas. Nice, yes. I realize a few people had had asked for permission to access the Google Doc. And I just wanted to note the Google Docs were intentionally set to view only, so that each person could make a copy. And that's because I can't assume that everyone has a Google account or that they are signed into their Google account. There is a really cool trick where you can change the ending of the URL and it will actually create a forced copy link. So anytime someone goes to that link, it will automatically create a copy of the document that will be saved in that person's Google Drive. The problem, though, is that they have to have a Google account and they have to be signed into the account. So I did not do that this time, but that's certainly that's a great option if all of your learners have Google accounts. Um, Also consider, though, the devices that your learners are using. It is technically possible to get the Google Docs app, which allows you to edit Google Docs on your phone or tablet. Um, but I certainly do not want to type in a Google Doc on my phone. That just does not seem like a good experience. Certainly not for um, learners who are newer to English and newer to digital literacy. I don't think that's really setting people up for success. Um, so maybe another tool that is a little bit more mobile friendly and that doesn't require signing into a Google account. Padlet is really nice for that. Just the traditional Padlets, like the resource collections. You can actually do a lot with learners responding to a Padlet. They can not only type, they can also add images, they can add links, they can record audio and video sometimes, depending on the level of account that you have. So yeah, Padlet is really nice. Um, if you have any money available, I think it's definitely worth a subscription. Yeah, Google surveys or Google Forms are another tool. Thanks, Holly, for reminding me. That generally works pretty well on phones. And depending on your settings, you have to check your settings, but learners don't have to have a Google account necessarily to use Google Forms. Kahoot is a popular tool. That one can be tricky with online learning if learners only have their phone because they have to, go get from their Google Meet or Zoom app to the Kahoot, and then respond and then return to the meeting. So it takes some more, um, so definitely some teaching to use it successfully. Yeah, Stacy shared she uses sorry, not Google Docs, Google Forms for learners to turn in their spelling and dictation tests. Yeah, you can do a lot with Google Forms. Um, Maybe not as pretty and Pinteresty as like Padlet TA, but definitely relatively simple to use and gets the job done. John is wondering about using a physical whiteboard in class. I'm assuming for like a HyFlex class. Um, in general, if you go back to that HyFlex explainer article, one of the Mankato non-negotiables for a HyFlex classes is that your whiteboard is dead. It's just not a very equitable tool. It's going to be really hard for online learners to see everything that you're writing. Um, so probably better to start using a Google Doc or a Word doc or something that's digital and you can just type in the document and share your screen so that everybody can see what you're writing. WordWall is another nice tool similar to Padlet TA, but free accounts are, I think, quite limited, if I remember. Um, yeah, there's also Paint, Google and Google Sheets even. You can get those apps for phones. But again, balancing what you want learners to be able to do with the realities of, how hard it can be to do things on a very small screen. Um, Another tip with slides is to use vertical slides because um, oftentimes when learners are on their phone, they don't necessarily know to turn the phone sideways to make things bigger to read. And sometimes, depending on the device and the settings, that doesn't even work anyway. Um, so the Mankato teachers, I just brilliant idea. They reset their Google Slides so that it's a portrait orientation, and that can make it easier for learners to see on their phones. Yes, and there are lots of online whiteboard, or if you have a smart board in your classroom, sometimes that can work for writing and drawing. Or a document camera is nice. You can just write on paper and have learners be looking at the paper. All right, we are going to take a very, very quick stretch break. And then when we come back, we will have some more time in groups to share ideas. It'll be instead of by region, this next time it'll be by topic. So please take a very, very quick, just 2 minute stretch break, and then we'll be back for a little bit more. Hello, welcome back. I always told my learners, like, go move your body when we're having an online class because it's really hard to just look at a screen for even an hour straight. Um, we are going to spend the last chunk of time today in breakout groups by topic. We've got 5 groups, but technically only 3 breakout groups. So we'll explain this to you. The first topic is Zoom. So if you know you are teaching with Zoom and you want some help with just basic logistics of sharing your screen and managing breakouts and managing the chat and polls and things like that, just stay in this call. You don't have to join a breakout group or do anything. Just stay where you are right now. The second group will be Google Meet. Google Meet is kind of a different beast from Zoom if you're teaching in it. So we are actually going to have you leave Zoom and join a Google Meet with Katie, and she will answer your questions and model how to do some things in Google Meet. Group number 3 will be with me, and we can dive more into Padlet TA, or just the traditional Padlet or Padlet Sandbox. We can talk about those tools. Group number 4 is for folks who are teaching HyFlex classes. Rebecca is going to be facilitating that group. Rebecca has quite a bit of experience teaching HyFlex. And then the 5th group will be with Nick. Nick is our digital navigator. We are so lucky to have at Literacy Minnesota. He has tons of experience and knowledge to share with you about digital navigation and troubleshooting all sorts of weird and exciting device problems. So again, here are the groups. I will put this Google Meet link in the chat. Okay, only go to the Google Meet if you want to work on Google Meet. Otherwise, you'll stay in this main call, or you'll go to breakout group 3, 4, or 5.
I have a question.
Yes.
So about the room 5, so the person is going to explain different issues we might face and then explain how to resolve it, or should we have a question and ask him? How does gonna go?
I can let Nick answer that. I think
Hello. Hello. I'll be going over a brief explanation of what we mean by digital navigation. Go over some common tips in trying to find solutions. We can't cover every solution under the sun, but hopefully you'll walk away feeling like you can look up any issues that you're unfamiliar with and feel more confident in solving problems.
Thank you.
So with that, the Google Meet link is in the chat. So probably best if you leave Zoom first, but make sure you have that Google Meet link. But don't try to be in Zoom and Google Meet at the same time. And then we'll open the other breakouts. And that'll take us all the way to 3:30, so we're not gonna all come back in the main call. So thank you very much for attending, and I look forward to seeing a few of you in the Padlet breakout. Yeah, Deb, we're going to open breakouts again, but this time there will only be 3 breakout groups. There'll be the Padlet group, the HyFlex group, and the digital navigation group. And then if you want to talk about Zoom, just stay here in the main Zoom call.
Yep, Jason and I will be here to talk about Zoom and answer your questions about teaching on Zoom.
Hello. Hello? Am I in?
I can hear you.
Sorry, I'm actually, can you see me? I don't even see myself.
I can see you just fine.
Yay. Hey, I could actually use a lot more help with Zoom, but our site uses Google Meet, so I feel okay with having
Okay.
to figure this on my own. Going along with not knowing how to use things, are you able to throw me into a room? Because
I think I can. Yeah, let's
they
see. I
all
closed
sound,
that little window, but I think I can find it back. Let's
thank
see.
you. It's ridiculous. They all sound really good, but it's also I was going to talk to Rebecca later because I'm at Metro South and I thought I'd learn more about HyFlex. So if you could throw me in HyFlex.
HyFlex, which is, let's see, room 4,
4.
right?
Mhm.
Yes, I will send you to room 4.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
There we go. Join.
All right. So, hey, Jason. And who else do we have here in our Zoom room? Do folks want to turn on their cameras and say hello? So we know that you're there. Megan, Susan, Michelle,
Deb, Diana, Clifford.
Alyssa. We're here to answer your questions, so let us know what you would like to have help with when it comes to teaching on Zoom. Hi, Michelle, I see you in the chat. Melissa says she needs camera off. But if you can't speak or turn on your camera because of the situation you're in, that's fine. Just drop your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them. And if folks don't have specific questions, Jason, do you have things you want to cover specifically?
Uh, so hello, Suzanne. So yeah, I can speak. So I am teaching a fully online classes, and even though my students are in their, appropriate levels, and I teach their levels, actually the classes are multi-level classes. Each class is a multi-level class, and I am very scared of doing a breakout session because first of all, they're gonna sneak out and use their first language. And second of all, I don't want to bother them. Every time they speak in their language, I don't want to say,
Mm.
"Hey, switch it to English." It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of annoying, and also I'm not quite sure if I have to do it. So how can you manage the breakout sessions so bravely? And what?
It's a big question. Yeah. I have a couple of thoughts. I'm assuming Jason probably does too. I'll give a couple of thoughts and then I'll let Jason share. So, one thing you can think about is whether or not you can get volunteers in your online class and have your volunteers go into the breakout rooms with your students to facilitate the discussion.
Okay.
Um, that can be very helpful.
Mm.
Uh, in Zoom, you can also, as you have seen here today in our breakout rooms, designate who goes into which room. So
Yeah.
if you have multilingual classroom, which I don't know, like maybe all your students speak the same language and you can't do this, but if you have a multilingual group of students, you can pair them up across language difference. So they're forced to speak in English. Those are two things that I would start with. Another thing would be to give people a very concrete task that they need to accomplish when they're in the room and give them, a document or something, even if it's just a picture and they're like listing 5 things they see in the picture or something. Just sending people into rooms and saying, now you will talk, that's not going to work, right? We need to give them something very specific to do in their rooms. What would you like to add to that, Jason?
One thing that I've always liked whenever I've seen the hybrid classes is the use of polls so that
Mm-hmm.
people have the same things to work with on both sides. So if you're in the classroom, you can do the poll and it still counts with the people outside the classroom. It keeps everybody together to make sure everybody's doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with using good graphics or good backgrounds and, having a really strong presentation if possible, because it's such a visual medium that you want to make sure people are paying attention and not just my talking head all the time. So what are
Mm-hmm.
people looking at?
Yeah, visuals are really important in online classes. I would agree for sure. There's
So, and then
another. Oh, yeah,
checking
go
the
ahead.
chat. And then I was going to say the final thing is always, um, the chats are important. Make sure no one gets lost in a chat, which is really a difficult thing when you're trying to present and watch a chat at the same time. I know just even me presenting, my brain always wants to go look at the chat all the time to make sure I'm not missing anything, but then it makes my teaching um, very choppy. So,
Mm-hmm.
like Susan said, if you can get a volunteer to even help answer questions or something, or even another student volunteer to
Mm-hmm.
just say, someone has a question,
Yeah,
it's helpful.
it can be helpful. And another thing is to do structured activities that aren't just talking activities, like pair dictation or, close exercises where a student reads the sentence and there's a word missing and the other student has the missing word, or something that's very structured so they don't have to think about what to say, but that you're providing that scaffold for them, I think can be helpful too. And then there's a question from Melissa in the chat. What's the best way to teach beginners how to use Zoom reactions and annotations in class if we don't have second language support in classes? What we have done, I mean, onboarding students to Zoom before you enroll them in the class, a good strong orientation is really important. So if at all possible, have someone, whether that's you, the teacher, or it's a volunteer, or if it's a digital navigator, meet with the person to go over tools one-on-one before they're enrolled in the class. But if that's not possible, or you're already in the middle of class and you've got people in there, we have had folks make short little screencast videos and then send them to students on text message or WhatsApp so that they can access that and see, and it'll actually show them what to tap. And we've had people make those videos on their phones because most of our students are on their phones. So they screen capture what they're doing on their phone and then they message it to people, and show is better than tell. Yeah, and I see in your chat you do orientations, but many miss. Yeah. And another thing we've done with our online classes is we do every couple of months a post-testing day where people have to come back in and do their CASAS test or whatever. And then at that same time, we'll have them bring their device and do a tech checkup to make sure that they have the most recent version of Zoom installed and that they're, if they've got the thing bookmarked and just do a checkup to make sure everything's working. When you've got to bring them back in for testing anyway, that's the perfect time to do that. Anything you want to add to that, Jason?
No, I think that covers a lot of the things. I think if you did those things, things would go pretty good for you.
And students kind of get the whole emotion reaction thing, I think, pretty quickly because a lot of people are very familiar with their phones and do a lot of emojis already. So they're familiar with emojis as a concept, right?
Yep.
What other
Yeah,
questions do people have?
I do think the tech is the thing that people forget about with HyFlex, and everybody's like, "Oh, we'll just teach people online," and I'm like, it's a lot more support to maintain everybody's computer slash phone for all your students every single day than it is, a computer lab of 10 computers. So it's a whole different skill set, and it's a struggle for a lot of people. So if you're feeling like it's a struggle, it can be. That's just
It's not
how it
easy.
is.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Anybody who's telling you that teaching online with beginning English learners or teaching a HyFlex class is easy and anybody can do it is lying to you. It
Yeah.
is hard. And if you find it to be hard, it's not you. It's actually just a really hard job.
Yeah. Even just trying to just helping people get logged into things, in a classroom lab is difficult, and then try and do it remotely if someone can't remember their Google password, or something.
Yeah.
It's hard, and you worry about losing people when they're at home because there's distractions or wherever they're at. And yeah,
So
it's difficult.
we have used WhatsApp groups for our online classes as the mechanism to send the Zoom link out to everybody. And we chose WhatsApp because most of our students already had it and already used it for talking to their family. So I always try and recommend find out what technology your students are already using and try to utilize that, right? Because then you don't have to teach them something else new. And it's also nice we use QR codes for the WhatsApp groups. So when we're doing orientation for a new student, when we're enrolling them, we just have a sheet and they can scan the QR code and it puts them immediately into the right group. so they don't have to know how to enter in the code for the group and any of that.
We also do a lot of mobile apps with students for what we call distance learning or asynchronous learning, like MobiMax or Ellie that we're moving to. So students are used to using their devices for that, so it gives them confidence to be able to do some more online activities. So build little successes as much as you can, and students will do the work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and one other thing I had put in the chat earlier, somebody was like saying something, oh, the first time I tried this activity was hard, but then the second time was easier. And that is absolutely the truth, right? The first few times you try a new technology like that, whether it's doing reactions or doing chat or doing annotations, the first few times it's just learning how to do the tool, right? And focus on only the tool and really limited English that your students have already mastered. And then once they know how to use the tool, then you can use the tool to learn new English. But don't try to mix up new complicated English stuff at the same time you're trying to do new complicated tools because it just overwhelms people. They don't have enough cognitive resources to think about learning both the language and the technology simultaneously. So try to just master the tool and then use the tool to learn. And routines, 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 routines are your friends. Any other questions for folks? I know we're kind of getting close to time here.
Susan, do you know for will there be CEUs for this training?
I believe for Minnesota practitioners there will
Okay.
be. I don't know if we send CEUs out to participants from out of state. And that should go with the follow-up email with the slides and everything.
Yeah. And do feel free to share our handouts and email links and whatever else with your coworkers, because we're trying to help everybody. So we understand not everybody can attend all our sessions when we'd like them to be able to make it easy for us. So share away.
Yeah, we'll have it up on the YouTube channel. You can share that YouTube channel with folks. There's so many great resources there. And then that one-stop document has many, many things. And the more the merrier.
Yep.
Spread the information out to whoever you want.
Yep. And we also have the Atlas calendar.
Ooh, here's a good question for Michelle. In an emergency, such as a sudden loss of internet, what strategy do you have to reach students? So I have not had this happen while teaching, but I have had this happen while doing a presentation, a webinar like this, where my internet actually did go out. And I had to switch to using my phone hotspot. So you might think about that as an option, is knowing how to turn on your hotspot on your phone to create a local network connection for you so that you can get back online. It's always good to have a backup plan because things inevitably do go wrong.
And if your students have multiple devices and one that could be a hotspot besides their home, it's a good life skill to know too, to just be able to jump on a hotspot or turn it on for a family member or whatever. So,
Yes, definitely a good skill to have. You never know when you don't want to be on a public Wi-Fi when you're out and about because maybe you're doing something sensitive and you want to make sure that you're on a more secure signal. You might want to switch to your personal hotspot.
yep.
Right? It's a good skill. Probably more advanced than my beginners are ready for, but not everybody's working with beginners. Some folks are working with more
Yep.
advanced students.